Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Cyclocross Social podcast. Today, we're going to be discussing the first day of racing at the 2025 European Championship Cyclocross right here in Middelkerke. And with me here to discuss it from the Netherlands, watching it all on his big screen, seeing all the details, knowledgeable as always, Issam. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
A packed day of racing, 3 races, 3 titles, but I must say it is nice that the European Championships are back where they belong as a 2-day event. Last year in Pontevedra, everything was put on one day because of the Koppenberg Cross on Friday. A year before in Pontchâteau, everything was on one day due to a storm, and this just gives a much more relaxed feel to it. It's not all that rushed, and you have plenty of time to watch the races, interview a few people between the races, and we had quite some good racing, some surprising outcomes here. I think in our preview episode we made a somewhat fair assessment of the course. Yes, there's a bit of sand, but there's also a lot of running, a lot of climbing, so the sand riding skills per se aren't necessarily the decisive factor. What was decisive in the women's race was the start. We mentioned it, Lucinda Brandt, her start is her weakest point, and it showed once again today. Her initial getaway wasn't bad, but in the first corner, which was immediately a big bottleneck up a hill, she lost a lot of places. Then she didn't make it up the second hill in traffic, and she was in 12th position. Inger van der Heijden wasted no time. She broke clear at the front because her other main rival, Sara Casasola, also didn't have a great start. By the time Brandt and Casasola made their way to the front, that was after the beach, Van Heijden had a lead of 20 seconds. There was an initial push to close the gap, but there was a weird tactical game going on. Brandt at some point seemed intent to play the role model Dutch teammate, refusing to do any work. Casasola was unsure, should she chase her Crelan Corendon teammate, yes or no? Sometimes it was yes, the other time it was no. The gap went out to 28 seconds. There was a push to close the gap. It went down to 20. Then it went above 30. And then in the third lap, there came a very decisive moment in the race. Lucinda Brandt decided to place an all or nothing move to close the gap. From 30 seconds, the gap went down to some 8 seconds at the lowest point, was what was mentioned by the race announcer on venue. But then Brandt made a tiny mistake. Her 2-second gap over Casasola and Van Alphen vanished. And then Brandt decided that it had been enough. She wasn't going to risk closing the gap with Casasola and Van Alphen. The gap went up to 40 seconds. Van der Heijden went on to take the European title. For second place, the battle was decided in the penultimate lap when Sara Casasola went over the bars going onto the beach. That crash put her back. Van Alphen put Brandt under pressure but couldn't keep that up through the final lap. Brandt went on to take silver with Van Alphen third, Casasola needing to settle for fourth place. Well then, Issam, here we are, and I don't really know how to feel about this win for Inge van der Heijden. The race had a weird dynamic to it. I can't say that I expected her to take the win. Our preview episode is out there. We both went for Lucinda Brandt. She had been the strongest rider so far this season, but the European Championship is just one day. While we did discuss that this course suits Inger van der Heijden very well, this is one of the best courses on the circuit for her, it still comes as a modest surprise. Her season so far had not been great. It had kind of flamed out, quieted down after her win in Middelkerke. It wasn't bad, but it just missed something to indicate that this was coming. But this is, I guess, the best day to peak other than the World Championships. She gets a jersey, and honestly, a truly deserved race because she executed near enough flawless. There were hardly any mistakes. There were not really much that I saw that I can really point out and say, Inge van der Heijden, you didn't do that well today. She capitalized on Lucinda Brandt's poor start, and now she gets to wear the European Champions jersey for a year.
That's the championship, you know. It's all about that one day and not about the races that were before that. And I think, you know, if you look at those races, I wouldn't have given van der Heijden a big chance. But she really took the opportunity. She started well. She negotiated the course great, and she had good legs because it wasn't only, you know, she wasn't only making the difference in the sand sections, but also on the harder parts, she was also able to just ride very strongly. And I think that it was eventually that was critical for how that gap came about. Of course, it was also because of the tactics, what happened behind. And Brandt, I don't know how, we're talking about self-sabotage in with the start and not being there in position to take the chase. And it took too long, I guess, or it took too much effort as well before she got in that position on the first lap. And then when you are there, I think she came in a somewhat awkward position, both in terms of, the legs that she had, but also in the situation she was. And that was obviously also, that played a big role in today's race. But I think that Van der Heijden today also had just a very good day.
Certainly, because for about 2/3 of this race, I was just waiting for Brandt to place this acceleration, for her to close the gap, because we've seen it so many times, right? Brandt not having a great start. We saw it in Lokeren last week. Her start wasn't great, but then she manages to recover and then still win these type of races. And in the third lap, when she placed that big acceleration, I really thought that this was the moment. She was going to close the gap, but it didn't happen. So I have to conclude that Lucinda Brandt today wasn't strong enough. I don't really buy into the narrative that she only did this as a big Christmas giveaway show. Oh, Lucinda Brandt is treating Inge van der Heijden to a European title. That's not the way Lucinda Brandt is wired. I don't believe that. But what I do believe is that Lucinda Brandt, after those efforts to recover from her bad start, already felt, hey, I'm not the best today. And the last thing she wanted in that case was to close the gap with Casasola there, and then see the headlines after the race, Sarah Casasola benefits from Dutch clown show, the circus is open again. I think that's where the shift in mentality from Brandt comes from. Not because she all of a sudden cares deeply about Inge van der Heijden winning a European title. The post-race interview that I heard from her also didn't really scream like, oh, I'm that happy. It seemed more like, I'm pissed that I couldn't perform the way I wanted to perform today because I had been good this season. So to summarize, my conclusion is she placed those attacks. She thought, I can perhaps do it, but she didn't feel confident enough in herself. She didn't feel strong enough in herself to kind of commit to these moves, and then in the end decided, well, in that case, I don't want to be the one here that is going to potentially result in the Dutch once again being criticized for their tactics on the women's side, because that has happened at the Gravel World Championships this year. It has happened at the Olympics in Tokyo. I can name a number of opportunities here. Bogense 2019 World Championships Cyclocross. That was probably a case of not today for Lucinda Brandt, but not out of luxury.
She didn't have the legs, or at least felt that it was going to be a very difficult task to actually get to Van der Heijden without that risk. That definitely played a role in her decision to just try and play the teammate role and just look behind and say it's not up to me to chase. And I think she was in her right to do that. I think, as you said, and I agree with that. I think that if she had the legs, she would have closed the gap, because she just she would know that she was going to win it, and she didn't have that confidence nor the legs, I think. And it the mistakes were there left and right. That didn't help. I think that push that she was, when she tried to actually close that gap was quite impressive. And I think also showed that she had strong legs. And that's actually what we saw in the last couple of races already. But I think that what we also kind of saw in the last couple of races, that, the way she won, it was strong, but it was not impressive. And I think that to kind of solve the puzzle that was there evolving in lap 1 and trying to close the gap, I think she needed to have impressive legs and form to be able to solve it and make sure that she was actually the one winning the title. And she didn't have that. She came up short, and then it becomes a bit difficult with Casasola as well. And Casasola was also in a difficult situation, I guess, because I think she probably didn't have the legs to close the gap. And it's also her teammate in terms of Crelan Correndon. So it was a difficult situation. I don't think it was the most exciting race as well. I mean, at least for me, these type of races are the nature of the course. It's difficult to make it that exciting, especially when you see that someone, just has the gap, and it seems to be that way, that they are just not going to be able to bridge it, then it takes away some of the excitement. But yeah, that's also how the racing goes. And I think for Van der Heijden, a championship is a championship, and that's a jersey that you're going to wear for a season, and that's, no one is going to take that away.
Definitely not. And with that said, you touch upon an important point about Casasola. She passed by in the mixed zone after the race. She said she wasn't sure how to act. She was, in a way, also caught in the team game. That created a weird dynamic in which she said afterwards that she wasn't really sure how to act and not really willing to fully commit, meaning that Brandt and Casasola were kind of engaged in a game of both of them only wanting to bridge to Van der Heijden alone for different reasons, which added to that dynamic, which didn't really make this feel like a thrilling race, because you could see a lot of the time that they were holding back. In the end, I don't think that we can say like with confidence, oh, Brandt was stronger than Van der Heijden. Brandt was making a lot of mistakes today. I in fact don't think that Brandt had a good day. What I do think is that this is a race that is decided by moments. In many ways, you can compare it to a crit. I've raced many crits myself, and I was always a rider that went in the breakaway. I was a rider that wanted to avoid a sprint. So I would attack. Typically after a preem, I would get a gap, let's say 15 to 20 seconds. Then there's this crucial moment. At some point they think, okay, now we need to try and reel him back in. If the gap goes down to 5 seconds and they close it, then I'm caught. But if the gap stays at 5 seconds for 2 laps, they will probably give up. That's what happened here. Van der Heijden, when that gap was 8 seconds, it was a pivotal moment in the race. If they closed the gap at that point, the race can have a completely different scenario unfolding. That's not to say that Van der Heijden wouldn't have won from there. She was strong. But we could have seen a different type of dogfight for the win between 3 Dutch riders and an Italian. And then we would have seen if the team tactics really meant anything. But in the end, this is to say, Issam, that we've seen it before. This win reminded me a lot of Schreiber's win in Hulst last year. I don't know if you agree with that, but there it was a similar scenario about the favorites having a bad start, then they're in the chase, they kind of have this moment where they're going to close the gap or not, and then they don't close it and the gap goes back out, and the rider who attacked from the start wins, and that was Van der Heijden. In Hulst, it was Schreiber. These are quite fun scenarios in a way, but I can definitely understand why you're feeling this is not the most entertaining race you've watched this season.
Oh, yeah, don't get me wrong. I saw the joy, and I saw the excitement also in a way, for sure. But I can I can understand that there were a few watching and then thinking, well, there goes the excitement. That is also, that's also part of racing. And in cyclocross, these type of races, they are numerous, where a rider just makes a run for it, and due to circumstances at times, I mean, it did help that Vash was second there, and chasing her running, and that if Vash is there running, you definitely are going to have a gap at the top of a climb if you have to run. So those things kind of help, and they push towards a certain scenario, and I think sometimes as a rider, if you have the legs, you still need those kind of pushes to get in such a scenario, and then it's up to you to finish it off. And I think that Van der Heijden did that perfectly. It seems to be that way, that this was a goal, or at least she really wanted to do, have her best result here and do well, and I think she proved that. And it's just a difficult situation to be in, I guess, if you're a competitor and you kind of just feel that the race is slipping away, you can't really do anything. For both, I think, Casasola and Brandt, because I think for Van Alves, it was more a scenario of I'm happy to be here, and I will try to get a podium. And she did eventually get that podium because Casasola made that mistake at the crash, and there was the podium.
Van Alphen was good though. She did make a move to pressure Brandt for the silver medal. I agree, in the chase, she didn't really have it to pick up the glove and really fight for the title. Nevertheless, it was a good outing by her. I was quite impressed. It was what I had hoped for from her. I think this was a good course for her, which is why I picked her for the bronze medal. And with a little bit of fortune, that did happen. We don't really know what would have happened if Casasola didn't crash, hard to say. In a positioning game today, I think Van Alphen might have had the upper hand. You could see it a number of times. Casasola just isn't that good in the sand. Every time she went through the sand, you were kind of holding your breath, and that's another passage on the beach saved without a crash or anything. It's not her strength. It's not a great course for her to fight for medals. So I will be interested to see how she does going forward. I believe she will be starting in Niel. That should be interesting. It's a very technical course, but it should normally be a bit muddy there as well. We've had some rain, although the last week has been dry. So let's wait and see. I am still quite bullish on Casasola for the remainder of their season. There will be some days in which things do click and in which she can beat all the best riders in the world without there being some sort of asterisk of a crash or whatever behind her name. But for now, Van Alphen can enjoy the podium, and we can look at the entire top 10. Van der Heijden, Brandt, Van Alphen, 3 Dutch women on the podium. Casasola 4th place, ahead of Foucounet and Clausel. 7th place for Denise Betsema, Verdonschot in 8th, Zemanova 9th, and Julie Brouwers completing the top 10 in 10th position. We've discussed all of these riders, Issam. I would like to say that Amandine Foucounet had a good ride today, and in fact we can listen to her in the mix zone after the finish. 5th place today, was that the maximum achievable for you after a slow start?
Yeah, it's a very good start with the climb, and after I try to remove at the front, but when the first girl is at the front together for fight for the first place, it's really different when you are alone. So I'm happy with the race and with my technique on the circuit, but I'm not really happy for the result, but it's like this. And when a lot of people know I don't have a team for next year, so in the head it's not very easy every day, but I'm fight for have the best result for find the team.
Has there been any progression? You got a podium in Ruddervoorde. Anything happening yet, or still waiting?
No, for this moment I have nothing, but I try to do my best for sure what is possible for me to do. But now I just wait and I try to do my best, and I hope some people see that.
So now you're still with Arkea. Is the team still supporting you, or do you rely on your parents, or who's helping you out?
Yeah, I have 3 or 4, I don't remember, a sponsor when I find with one people who helped me for find us. And Arkea give me the material, and he paid me for the finish of the season. But after it's finished, and yes, I just won't find the team.
So Foucounet still on the lookout for a contract. Nothing has changed, even though her results this cross season so far have been really good. She's looking for a team that will allow her to combine road with cross. Hopefully that turns out. Her results have been really good. She's still just 24. There's plenty of life in her career. Somebody should definitely pick her up right away. Finally then, Norbert Ribarol, probably the disappointment of the day. She was coughing a lot. I heard it a number of times when she passed me on the course, and I don't really know if she said anything about it afterwards, but that was just an observation which could potentially explain her performance today. Moving on then to the men's under-23 race, Issam. This was a spectacle, a great spectacle. It did surpass any expectations I had. I did think this was going to be a good race because the U23 race was predicted to be close, and it was. We had, for the first 35 minutes of the race, a show by Owen Sparfell. This guy is, you can rent him if you need to have any heavy stuff moved around your garden, if you need your new driveway installed. Owen Sparfell is your man. He can do just about everything. He was attacking, he was then holding back, he was moving up from 5th position, placing a launch pad attacks. This guy was in his zone. But then he eventually broke clear. And it seemed like he was going to win the title because he had a 15-second gap. But then he crashed quite hard. His gap was gone. He lost his mojo there. The impact was bad. Within half a lap, the race completely turned around because Mattia Agostinacchio had started quite far back because he is a first-year U23 and still doesn't have that many points. It took him 2 laps to move to the front. Then he was caught up behind the crash after making a mistake himself. He needed to chase. And just before Sparfell kind of had that crash, he was in the second group. At the back of the second group. That was around 9th place. He started moving up. I saw him make a few overtakes. And this guy, we know from the juniors that his final lap is phenomenal. And he did it again. But not just again. Just before the second pit, I saw him make an overtake to close the gap to the leading 5 riders. The next thing I know, this guy is in the lead. And I see Sparfell's bike going sideways on a sand section. And he's gone. And then he throws out a flaming final lap to take the win. As a first-year U23. Chapeau. That is the only word I have. Chapeau to him. What a ride. What a talent. What a guy. What an outing. It was phenomenal. Like, put it in contrast to David Haverings or Kai de Bruikere. Haverings was good today, but he made quite a lot of mistakes, which meant he was constantly fighting for position. De Bruikere, arguably the strongest rider today, but he had a bad crash with about 2.5 laps to go and needed to fight back. That he from there still got onto the podium is an impressive performance, even though he pedaled not long enough. He stopped pedaling too soon. He nearly got whippled on the line by Romain de Boort for 3rd place, but again, Agostinacchio. Wow.
Yeah, I have to say that when I was following the live timing and Sporza was also somewhat trying to inform everyone that, wasn't attending the race and couldn't watch the broadcast because there wasn't none. But there were some video footage clips, I guess, of the race, and I thought Agostinacchio was not going to get into the race. I mean, I don't know how it looked, but for me at least, it looked like, okay, this is going to be a tough one. But it seems like if you look at his lap times and how he was moving through the field, it looked like he was building up towards something. And I think when he attacked, he just kind of showed, that he was a level above the rest in terms of what he still had left. I think that he turned around the race, was patient, I guess that's what I can go on about. But Sparfell, I tend to have a question because you probably would know that better than I do. But, it's not the first time he's having issues, I guess, in a race due to himself or circumstances and all that. Is that now a trait that we should take into account when we talk about someone like Sparfell, or do you think it was just unfortunate, the course was tough, the sand, he didn't really, maybe concentration, whatever. What do you think?
Well, I don't really remember Sparfell as a rider who had a lot of issues with remaining consistent and making that many mistakes. Sure, the World Championships in Louvain, which was the biggest race last year, was a race which wasn't smooth for him and he was slipping and sliding around. But from his junior years and even his elite or U23/elite career, he doesn't strike out as a rider to me that is that inconsistent. He made one mistake, and that was that crash. So it was unfortunate for him. He was strong, and I think we will see a lot more from him. What I will say here, if we look at the top guys, there was a big battle. There were a lot of riders together. There was a constant jockeying for position. In such a situation, it also is just a matter of time. Like, if you go too wide into that section where you dip onto the beach coming from the concrete. That's just asking for trouble. It's just waiting for a crash to happen. And guess what? Crashes did happen because people went side by side there. These people trying to remount down the inside on a dune and then surprisingly not being able to corner their bike. Unsurprisingly, that too leads to crashes. And it was almost like I was watching a junior race, which was weird because many of the riders up front here are super experienced U23s. Haverdings, De Bruikere, De Boer are all final year U23s. We had Raúl Mirabonastre from Spain up there, also a final year U23. So that was a bit weird to see. I would have expected a bit more maturity in terms of race behavior, race awareness. To answer your question one more time, I don't think this is a real thing for Sparfell, but it is interesting to kind of see that it's him and Vietzi was up there, but the chain of Vietzi got jammed. He would have been on for a good result as well, even though the course didn't suit him that much. So it is interesting to see that there's so many third and fourth year U23s up there, whereas the first years who were kind of last year in the slipstream of Agostinaccio are quite far down there. Arthur van der Boer 14th, Mats van der Einde 16th, but even the ones that were kind of following Sparfell and Vietzi last year, Jules Simon today didn't have a good outing. So we could really see that the older riders had an advantage, and perhaps that's a lot down to the nature of the course here, because it's such a powerful course that they just have an advantage in that sense.
I based my comment on with Sparfell on Liévin. I think the French national championship as well, where he should have probably won it, but he didn't. And then Tabor also crosses my mind right now, where he had the puncture in the final phase of the race and lost out there as well while he was leading. But it is interesting though how I have to say that the riders are. It seems to be quite a close category at the moment, at least for a course that they got in front of them, which is a tough course. It seems like the difference between the riders wasn't huge. And it's a bit of a shame that we were not able to see the broadcast, but it was, I think it definitely looked like it was a close battle with one rider that definitely stood out and was able to make his own luck and was able to take the victory. But behind him, definitely with Haverdings, I think you were definitely keen on Haverdings performing well. You tipped him as well a little bit. You thought that he would have had the chance at least, and it seems like when it's with the other under 23 riders, he was able to hold his own quite well, and I think that he definitely would be happy with the result.
For sure, but he also has to. He's a final year U23. There's quite a large degree of pressure on him. I'm not too sure if he's satisfied with this second place, but it's certainly his best outing of the season. With that, it's also this whole point of the way that the season was built up this year. I said it in the preview, and I guess with the first part, it's also true, right? I mentioned the riders that were good in Meulenbeke weren't that great afterwards, mainly referring to Wieseuren, Sweeck and Van der Heijden. And guess what Van der Heijden did? She won today. I'm not saying that tomorrow Sweeck and Wieseuren will go 1-2, but the season approach with the number of weeks before and how people then plan their training does have a big effect on the races in the last 2 weeks for people who are really peaking towards this event. Van der Heijden had been a bit sick as well, but we already discussed that race, so I will just return to this race. And yeah, Haverdings, he did kind of what he had to do, but like I said in the summary, Guy de Bruikere, who I said was on some fraud watch for me, certainly didn't prove himself to be a fraud today. He is one rider who did make the most out of this sand. He was by far the best sand rider today, and without that crash, I think it is likely that he would have won the title, but he did crash. I didn't see it happen. It was not shown on the big screen, so that was unfortunate for him. I don't know if it was his own fault or it was somebody else's fault, but he was really good, and the way he rode in the final lap and a half, coming back from 13th to 3rd, deserves applause. and maybe deserves to be scrapped from my potential fraud watch list. Let's look at the entire top 10 then. Behind Agostinaccio, Haverdings and De Breukere, we find Roma and De Boer in 4th place, Václav Jezek in 5th, Oudman Sparvel 6th place, Victor van den Bergen 7th, Guus van der Einde 8th, Alexis David in 9th, and Sil de Brouwer completing the top 10. One rider I would like to point out, Issam, is Romain De Boer. He surprised me today. I didn't know he had this type of performance in him. Yes, he's a final year U23. Yes, that is a very legitimate advantage that he has. He's 4 years older than Agostinaccio. Still, it's a big step forward. Last year, his best result in the World Cup was 13th in Benidorm. Now he is nearly finishing on the podium of a European Championship. That is a phenomenal stride forward from the rider of the AS bike team. He didn't miss it by that much. The big board, the LED screen gave a photo finish between those two because De Breukere stopped pedaling too early. There was a massive sprint by De Boer.
Yeah, I saw the footage of that, and it was close. It was actually close. I think he just needed a little bit more, but yeah, I have to agree. I think that it is definitely interesting to see the step that he has made, and that is somewhat, he is now at an age where you have to make that step, I guess, as well. I mean, at least if you wanna, he is at right now with us bike racing, so I think that's obviously he has somewhat of a future secured in terms of a couple of years, but you wanna show yourself a little bit more in these years because it's somewhat critical. It can really base your future, and yeah, it was great to see that he was up there, and I think that is somewhat what we have seen with the French riders, that there are a few that are able to get through, and he's definitely one of them. And he was that close, but I think De Breukere somewhat saved the day for Belgium today, because otherwise it was going to be a podiumless day for Belgium on a European Championship.
They were getting very worried by the lack of Belgians at the front of the race here, because for most of the race it was another blue jersey at the front, Václav Jezek. His positioning is phenomenal. He kept moving up at the right time, heading into important sections in the lead or in second wheel. I had the opportunity to speak with him afterwards. This guy has made a big leap forward, winning in the Czech Republic against Michal Boros. And here's what he had to say afterwards.
Václav, we saw you at the front of the race a lot today. Was that your plan when you started the race, be at the front? Very important to position on this course?
Yeah, from the beginning of the season I felt really stronger than last year, so I tried to stay in the front, and for the sandy sections I want to be in the front, and I think that was pretty great race from me, and we will see in the future how it will go.
In the Czech Republic, you've been beating Michal Boros, the best cyclocross rider from the Czech Republic for the last 10 years. How is that? Was he a rider you used to look up to, and now racing against him?
Yeah, like all the time he's really pushing me to ride better and better, and these races I know that I'm stronger than last year's, but it's every time different in where from the Czech, so I think that's quite great race from me today, and we will see in Tabor how it will go.
Are you happy with your result? Can I conclude that from your words so far?
Yeah, of course I'm happy. I think I'm five, so that's great race. For sure I'm a little bit sad because I think the whole race I'm riding for the podium, so but that's part of racing, and I'm happy with my result.
Is this the type of course you like the most, or do you like the mud more?
I think mud is better for me. Like in Czech we haven't got sand that much, so it's quite surprise for me how it will go this race, and I think I ride in the sand quite great. I felt really strong in sections where we need to run, so I think that's great race for me.
And final question, if you could do one thing differently, if you can do the race again, would you have anything already?
I think maybe before the second depot I went all the time to the front, and I think it will be better to stay somewhere in the group, and after that try to come in the front on the start row.
Okay, thank you so much, and we look forward to seeing you race again in Tabor.
Thank you very much.
Then Issam, I think finally we have a disappointment of the day. Jordi Corses, 15th place, recovered a little bit. He was fighting for 25th a long time. Apparently had some back issues, potentially some gearing issues as well. Not a great day out for him.
No, absolutely not. And yeah, I will not. I'll never make those remarks again of saying that I think that he was going to be the one winning, and that it was actually I saw him as a clear favorite. But yeah, he was not able to deliver, and it's a course where if you don't find your mojo, it's hard to get into the race, and then when you have back issues, you have to carry your bike quite a lot with the running as well. So yeah, I guess it was just not his day, and that's a bit of a shame because I think that he would definitely have been up there with the very best, fighting for a podium at least. And he wasn't able to do that, wasn't able to deliver on that. And yeah, as I said before, I think that De Bruyker somewhat saved the day for Belgium, but their main protagonists in the likes of Courses was just not, he was not able to deliver. And I don't think that means that is now going to be a trend that we will see for the next couple of races. I think that you still have to look at him as a rider with talent, with and those signs that we saw are still going to be there, but he has to show it at some point. And I think when when we get those under 23 World Cup races, then he will have a chance to showcase that. But I think today was a day to forget for him for sure.
Let's move to the junior women's race then before we wrap up this episode. It was a very predictable scenario. Barbora Bukowska was the big favorite, but she didn't have a good start. She was 28 seconds down in the first lap, halfway through the first lap that was already. Then her charge forward started. She moved from 17th position all the way up to the lead by the quarter point mark, that sand dune early in the second lap. Nienke Jochems tried to follow her for a while, but it wasn't too long lasted. Bukowska powered away to the win, 50 seconds ahead of Nienke Jochems, a first year from the Netherlands. For third place, there was a bit more of an interesting battle. For a long-time Dutch rider, Isis Versluis was in that, together with the Italians Giorgia Pellizzotti and Nicole Azzetti. The lights went out for Versluis in the final lap. She did not feature at all. It were the two Italians that duked it out, with Azzetti surprisingly coming out on top over Pellizzotti. This was a battle of who had most left in the legs. It was not really a technical difference to be made, but it was certainly surprising because Azzetti had not been the best rider on the Italian circuit this year. That had been Pellizzotti, and even Elisa Bianchi had been stronger than her in most races, but she peaked at the right time, taking third with Pellizzotti in fourth. But Bukowska, a dominant winner today.
And maybe has to work on that bad trade of starts not really going her way. But I think that is, we have said it before, and I think that Bukowska at the moment is strongest woman in junior category. And yeah, it's going to take a lot of self-sabotage in the first lap for her to lose out, I think. And that's, and still she would be able to probably mend the situation and get herself in a winning position. But it is what it is, and the course that you get right now is also, if you have the legs and you have the form, then it's also, I think, quite easy to make it happen. But I want to focus on Nico Azzetti and Pellizzotti as well, because I think, as you said, and the results were there, Azzetti was not the best Italian. But where did she make the difference? Was it just pure in terms of form and legs, or was there more to it with the sand and technique overall that made that it made the difference in the running maybe?
No, it was just who had most left in the legs. It was hard to see a difference in running. It's hard to tell if Azzetti was perhaps less tired from the running sections by the end. She's a bit taller than Pellizzotti, so that could have potentially made a difference. When we're talking about running, I will return the conversation to Bukowska because her running was unreal, phenomenal. She was gapping others there, overtaking people. It was a great sight, and she should honestly, if cyclocross doesn't work out for her or mountain biking, she should consider becoming a runner. It looked really good, so that could be an interesting other trajectory for her. The self-sabotage from the start, she can survive that now, but it will become a bigger problem if the other top riders return. We are still awaiting the world champion She will start her season in Tabor, Liesrevol that is. Anja Grossman, the defending champion, wasn't here. She's undergone surgery but will return to cross fairly soon. So those are two top riders that are still coming over into cross. When they come, this will be a lot more costly. On other courses, it will perhaps be even more costly. I'm thinking about the World Championships in Hulst. I'm thinking about Kokzijde. So there are definitely a few riders that still need to make the most of the bad starts of Bukowska this year. You saw that at the World Championships last year as well. It is a really bad habit that needs to change. Today, the Dutch tried to take advantage of it. Nienke Jochems and Isis Versluis really went at it from the start, not necessarily because that was their plan, I believe, to put Bukowska under pressure. Jochems was very surprised with second place. I'm honestly a bit surprised with that as well. For her, I would make the case that probably the course did give her an edge over a lot of the chasers. Adding to that is her start though, because Pelizzotti moved up through the field, Azzetti moved up through the field, Lali Pichon moved up through the field. A lot of riders that were in the first 5 at the end of the first lap fell back quite far. Versluis in 9th, Eva Drohova finished in 10th, a few others finished outside of the top 10 from where they were in the first lap. So there was a lot of reshuffling going on. Jochems had good legs and surprised herself with that second place in the end. But that doesn't necessarily need to mean that she will all of a sudden be a contender for World Cup victories. But we will see that, of course, as the season progresses. Then I did speak with Nicole Azzetti after the finish, and I will let you listen to that short interview as well.
Nicole, a race to the front. You kept overtaking riders today. How was that for you?
Yeah, it was a really nice race. I like the sand and to running, so I put all on the track and it goes well.
You were fighting for third place together with Pelizzotti, Giorgia, your fellow Italian. Did you play any team tactics against a Dutch rider, or was it really the strongest rider for themselves?
Yeah, I was putting me to take the second, so we can take the second and the third place. But in the final, I have a little much than Georgia, so I went.
Did you expect that you could finish on the podium when you started the race?
No, this morning I started with the intention to enter in the first 10, so I'm really happy.
Okay, congratulations. What are your remaining goals for the season now?
Now we went back to Italy, and then I think about the future.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Issam, I hate these flashy interviews. You get like 1 minute 32 minutes for like these people after the finish, and you try to come up with a good first question, but you don't really have a lot of way to go. So definitely not my best flash interview there, but still some interesting insights into her. She also surprised herself, saying she started with the hopes of finishing in the top 10 here today. Concluding, I think my main takeaway from over the day has to be the Czech Republic, Issam. A title, a strong performance by Jezek, another top 10 by, of course, Zemanova in the woman elite category, 3 riders in the top 10 in the woman junior. This is once again an encouraging sign coming from that nation. We, of course, had a long episode on the overall state and improvements that are being made to Czech cyclocross in May of this year.
Yeah, and it is a bit of a shame that we were not able to see a podiumless Belgium, to be honest, because I would have I would have loved an article or two about that, because I think that would have been a bad sight for them, in Middelkerke as well, racing, then not being able to pull that off. I think that would have been an issue, but I think tomorrow we will see definitely some Belgian riders on the podium. That should normally be the case, and I think that also one of the things that I maybe have underestimated on this course is the sand. I thought that, it can play a role, but it was, as you said, it's more in terms of the moments, and how the race is playing out, and the scenarios, and in what scenario you're getting in, with the legs that you have. And then the sand can obviously play a role left and right, and that could be the difference to actually making it, bridging a gap, or actually making the gap, or getting stuck with a certain group. So yeah, I think it was definitely an interesting first day, and I have no doubts that tomorrow is also going to be a very interesting day with great racing.
We will be back then tomorrow to discuss that racing, and you will be there as well. Thank you so much for your time, Issam.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
As said, we will be back tomorrow. Catch you guys then. Goodbye.